Welcome to the Vault XL. Happy Hump Day, everybody. This is a two-part live. Robert Theodore Kelly wants his sex abuse convictions in Chicago overturned. The district attorney dropped those charges last year because he had already received a 30-year sentence in New York. But now, as most of you who follow the content know, that Supreme Court upheld those convictions in Chicago. So now his lawyers are seeking to get those same sex abuse convictions overturned. There's an issue with some type of technicality about the timeline, statute of limitations, but at the moment, those convictions have been upheld by the Supreme Court, but his lawyers are trying to get them overturned. Thank you for joining me. Part two, Donald Trump's nephew, Fred, has written a book about his life, the life of his family, and there is commentary in the book pertaining to the former president that he has not been a very nice guy. We're going to discuss that after this commentary. Thank you for joining me. Welcome to the Vault XL.
Attorneys for disgraced Chicago musician R. Kelly have filed a petition to the U.S. Supreme Court to review his conviction for federal sex crimes. Kelly was convicted in federal court in Chicago on 3 counts of producing child pornography and 3 counts of enticing a minor for sex. He is serving a 20-year sentence. Kelly was also convicted in New York for sex trafficking and racketeering.
Watch breaking news.
ABC 7 Chicago is the source. So he had several charges which found him guilty in New York, 30-year sentence. He had sex abuse charges pertaining to girl children in Chicago. The DA dropped them last year, January 2023, and then the Supreme Court upheld those convictions. So at this current moment, those convictions stand in Chicago, and he is seeking to get them overturned. The next commentary is pertaining to Mr. Fred Trump, Donald Trump. Thank you for joining me. I'd like to donate to this great network, $sign the Ganji, 129 Cash App. Fred has a lot to talk about. ABC News is the source of this said information. Lord have mercy. Please check out the Queen Shorts in the YouTube queue. I always make a short pertaining to a topic in a video, and also check my community page for said polls. I did make a few polls pertaining to this subject matter of what Donald Trump allegedly said to Fred about his disabled son. You will hear all that commentary in this live stream. Allegedly, Donald Trump does not care for disabled individuals, has used racial slurs before once his tires got slashed back in the day. And Fred looks up to him, still deals with him. That would be questionable. Why would you still want to deal with someone who's been mean to you and has said derogatory things about your child? And to me, it doesn't matter if the child's disabled or not. You don't have any business saying anything about a disabled individual. What did he say? They have complex issues. And he told Mr. Fred, hey, in response to, medical fund running low, that a family medical fund for the boy child or adult child, he said, he doesn't know who you are anyway. Just let him die. Those are the words from the former president. ABC News is the source. Thank you for joining me. Wow. I'm not shocked at all. I haven't been shocked by anything that's come out pertaining to Donald Trump. Nothing. And before I get into that, as I always say, what is understood needs no explanation. Imagine hearing a person who's related to him bring forward this type of information, and then you fast forward many years later, a person puts an assassination attempt on your life. So this is why the scripture speaks it in Psalms. Speak it and it shall be so. You wish death upon somebody, you telling somebody should be dead, certain type of people should be dead, and then one day you look up, a bullet graces your ear. So I wonder if he has sat and thought about all these things that he has said to people in general that were nasty, not so nice, inhumane. Because let me tell you something. If you haven't thought about anything in your life in that type of situation, there's something wrong with you. There's absolutely something wrong with you. ABC News is the source.
Nephew of former President Trump, Fred Trump III, speaking out against his uncle in a new book. It's called All in the Family, The Trumps and How We Got This Way. And it alleges the former president used a racial slur and suggested disabled people should, quote, just die. The Trump campaign calls these claims disgusting lies, but his nephew says this is no political hit job. It's the full truth. Here's senior investigative correspondent Aaron Katersky.
It says the Trumps and how we got this way. What way? What's the Trump way? Complex and sometimes cruel. And within every family, people know this, families are complicated. Every family has their crazy uncle. My Uncle Donald is atomic crazy. And he has put his mark on the family history. Atomic crazy? Yes. What's that mean? Means he does things that, even as much as I know him when he's out there now, I sort of shudder and say, is this the same guy I knew? What's making him change? What got him this way? But that all being said, I've always had a good relationship, but he's done really horrific things to me, which some people will say, how could you still want to have a relationship with him? He's my uncle. He's family, and that means a lot.
After his uncle was elected president, Fred Trump says he saw an opportunity to advocate for the disabled.
I was in the Oval Office 12 times, about, and that was our mission, to advocate for people with complex disabilities. It culminated in May of 2020. In the Oval Office, Donald was there, and he was very gracious. Several other folks were there, including the group that we brought down. We dispersed. I was asked to go back and see Donald. He greeted me with his familiar, hey pal, how's it going? We sat down for a bit. And he just came out with, these people, all the expenses, they should just die. He's talking about human beings who have complex issues. And the first thing he could say was, they should just die.
Fred claims this wasn't isolated, describing a phone call to alert his uncle the medical fund set up by the family for his son William was running low, a fund he says the former president consistently replenished.
A couple of years ago, I called him, I said, Donald, the fund's running out. And without hesitation, he said, your son doesn't recognize you, let him die and move to Florida. Were you surprised? It's a great question. My response was, no, Donald, he does recognize me, and said, oh,
Wow.
Thanks.
Wow.
Was I surprised? I don't think you could hear something like that and not be surprised. But that is what he has become. It's sad. There's a chapter that you write about called the race card.
I mean, who he's always been.
What's that about? I was about 10 years old, and I was at my grandparents' house, like I was a lot. And Donald, I could hear him screaming. And I went down to the driveway of my grandparents' house, and there was his white Eldorado convertible with 2 slashes, still remember it. And he had electrical tape because the roof was black. And he used the N-word twice, just saying who he thought probably had done this.
You were 10 years old when these comments were allegedly uttered.
Right.
You sure you remember him that way?
Oh, absolutely.
He says he doesn't use the word.
Okay, he did twice that day.
You do write in the book about how people have labeled former President Trump a racist, and some people feel he is, some people say he's not, and you ask the question, is he a racist? You don't necessarily answer it.
Right.
Is he a racist?
He at times espouses things that people who I believe are racist espouse. That's the best I can answer that question.
Say more.
I don't believe he's a racist. I think that he uses people, whether they're black or they're whoever can help him, he will use them. And, call it racist or not, I don't believe in that. He uses them as props. And when he gets what he needs out of them, votes, he'll cast them aside.
So that is Fred Trump III speaking with our senior investigative correspondent, Eric Kotursky, who joins me now for more. Eric, thank you so much for your time. We heard at the beginning the Trump campaign is calling the claims in this book disgusting lies, but I would imagine they're saying a lot more than that. What do they say?
We did get a statement from the Trump campaign which said this is completely fabricated and total fake news of the highest order. And the statement goes on to say it's appalling. A lie so blatantly disgusting can be printed in media. Anyone who knows President Trump knows he would never use such language, and false stories like this have been thoroughly debunked.
Now, you pressed Fred Trump on a number of different claims in there, but this book is 300 plus pages, so there's a lot in there. Anything else that stood out to you?
Well, look, he does say and talks a lot about his son, William, his adult son, who does have rather complicated issues. He says that his Uncle Donald was responsible for replenishing the fund that pays for his medical bills. And he says this book is about advocacy. He does say it is not meant to be political, although we're less than 100 days from the election.
Yes.
Fred Trump told us he is voting for Kamala Harris.
Okay.
But if his uncle wins, he would attend the inauguration if he's invited.
I don't know that I would count on that, but that is interesting to hear. All right, senior investigative correspondent Eric Kotursky, thank you so much. Great reporting as always.
All right, everybody, it's ABC News. Let's chop up that information. So, Donald used, I'm assuming, the N-word many moons ago when his car tires were slashed. My thing is this, and it's not to be biased against any nationality, but we know these people have lived a comfortable life. So ask yourself, many moons ago, probably 40, 50 years ago or more, because he's almost 80. Were there some black people living in your neighborhood to slash the tires? Because I'm assuming that's who you're referring to in that slur to. So, Donald, were there some black people living in the neighborhood? There were some black kids down the street from you that like to what? Egg houses, put firecrackers in mailboxes. I'm just curious. We're going to take it there. Donald Trump was responsible for this medical fund for Fred's child. It got low. He went to him to seek help. And basically he said, just let him die. Move to Florida. Interesting. And that's where Mr. Trump has a home, Florida. Imagine that. Who says that to a person? Just let your child die. I'm not shocked by the commentary, quite frankly. And the reason why I'm not is the rhetoric that has been spun when he ran for office back in 2016. The things that were coming out about Stormy Daniels, all of that was just ridiculous. Now, what a person wants to do with his or her private parts is his or her business. What they did with their private parts beforehand, that's their business. But where there's a problem is seeking political office, knowing you've got this treasure trove of activity, and you don't think that those things aren't going to come out. That's common sense. Now, we have seen many politicians, skeletons come out before they ran for office, stuff they were doing while they were in office. Some people still, voted them in, kept them in. But when all those things were coming out about her, I remember like it was yesterday. It was ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And yet people still voted for him. And I couldn't understand it. I thought, okay, it's one thing that a person has fornicated. They were married. They're sleeping around with different women, doing different things. Okay. But the rhetoric, the nasty tone, the illiteracy, I couldn't understand why anyone would want to vote for somebody like this. It's baffling to me because he is not educated. He has been afforded the luxury of having money. His family, and let me say that again, his family has money or had money. So he was able to live a nice lifestyle that many were not afforded to have. So really, he didn't even have to go to school, finish college, get a formal education. One, I don't think he could because he doesn't have the fortitude or the aptitude to do so. That's why he didn't finish school. He doesn't have the aptitude. And when he speaks, you can tell he's not educated. So money doesn't buy you education. It doesn't buy you class. It doesn't give you class, rather. Let me rephrase that. You can go to a school if they allow you in. But I think it's obvious he couldn't hang. That's why he didn't couldn't finish. Couldn't finish. And I wouldn't doubt that somebody probably paid somebody to get him into college. I'm saying that. But here is the nephew with a disabled son advocating for those with disabilities. Yes, the book has come out summer before election, but we also know it takes time to write a book. It also takes time to get a publishing house to take the book, read the book, and decide if they want to give you monies for the book. And that's not a 1 month, 2 month process. But it's neither here nor there. I could care less when he wrote the book, quite frankly. But to say that to a human being, it's barbaric. As far as him being a racist, that doesn't mean anything to me either. I don't think he likes anybody. And as you hear Fred say here, he uses people. He says, I don't think it's about race. He uses people. Now he's saying basically his tongue sounds that of a racist, but he uses people. And I would agree. Because even when he was running for office back in 2016, so many things were coming out. Not just the issues with Stormy, but some guy who was supposed to have painted some type of ballroom at some golf club or some fancy country club or something in, I believe it was New Jersey. He owed him $30,000. Now you have all this money, you're wealthy, you're a real estate tycoon. $30,000 is chump change. Why would you be owing this person money? Then there was the Trump College. That was a fraud. Now that has your name on it. See, everything gets pushed under the rug when it comes to Donald Trump. There's no accountability for anything. Owing money, not paying taxes. How you get away with that is a mystery to me. I never heard of such. I bet you Oprah Winfrey pays taxes. What do you say? Oh, I'm sure a lot of these other wealthy movie stars, famous people. You think Jennifer Lopez pays taxes? Oh, I bet she does. Just saying. How do you live a life of luxury and don't pay taxes? Regular people pay taxes. Who have regular salaries, $50,000, $60,000 salaries. They pay taxes. Oh, I don't want the money. The president fee. I don't want it. You don't want it because you don't need it. It's a difference. You never heard of any president turning down the money. The stipend, rather. The way he treated his staff when he became president. Anybody that went over him, under him, defied him in his logic, they were gone. And 9 times out of 10, most of them were white people. So that tells you what he thinks of people. So I get what Fred is saying here. He uses people. I agree. Whatever he can get from you at that time. So you think about the lawyer who ended up being charged with some type of, crime. You all were all fine and dandy until all that Stormy Daniels stuff came to light. Now he's public enemy number one. Why? Because he told the truth. Why should he go down for writing this lady a check on your behalf? That's my point. Firing staff members. They were going out the door like hotcakes. And these are people that he chose, okay? So I get what he's saying. Because I thought that years ago. How many people can you fire? You chose these people. Now you have a problem with them. You and that lawyer were neck to neck in fraud, covering up the Stormy Daniels BS. But then as soon as somebody starts talking and there start being, legal documents about some type of crime, you expect this man to go down in flames. Why would he want to do that? What would he gain? This is why you don't help people do illegal things. Because in the end, it's going to come back and it's going to turn on you. And now you're the one left holding the bag. That was the whole purpose of you being the one writing the check to her. So his name wouldn't be on any documentation of paying her money. And then what did you get in the end for that? A criminal record. And talked about like a dog. And he talks nasty about his own people. Anybody that's worked for him, supported him. And those are not black people. Those aren't Mexicans. Those aren't Jews. You see where I'm going. His own people. His own race. He don't care about anybody. He does not care. It's obvious. They are disposable. That's what I think of with Donald Trump. That people are disposable to him, as Fred has said here. And this is a family member / white man speaking of his own family member. He uses people, and I would agree. And this is the same man that people root for and go to bat for and fall out and argue with people. And that's the part that I find baffling, is the behavior of people who want to sit up and argue with a sane human being about the behavior of Donald Trump. Why would you waste your breath? He is no different than anybody else out here walking and talking. He puts his underwear on the same way you put your underwear on. He is no better than any other civilian. And then to say he cares about people. I heard somebody say that in my chat. He loves the people. He loves whom? You don't even know this man. And then all the things you've heard him, that he's been accused of, financial crimes, the way he's treated his staff and different people. This is somebody that you're rooting for. Why? But this is what I always say about people. You root for people that you like or you are similar like them. Oh, he would never do that. She would never do that. How do you know what somebody would and would not do? You can't say what somebody would and would not do. You cannot say, oh, they ain't never say that, such as his administration saying he would never use that type of language. How are you going to talk about language he used 60 years ago or 50 years ago? Come on. The man is damn near 80 years old, and you're going to speak of what he said in a driveway in what, the 70s or 80s? Come on. You can't speak of what somebody would and would not do or what they did or did not do. You weren't there. You don't know what they did. This is why people end up making a fool out of themselves when they brag about people. You put people on the pedestal. It's in the scripture. You're not supposed to idolize a man or a woman. And some of you don't even believe in the Bible, so this won't apply to you. But I do believe in the Bible. And the Lord says it's in the scripture. That you're not supposed to put another man before him. False gods, idols. And a lot of you do idolize Donald Trump. Just like you idolize other people. But right now we're talking about Mr. Trump. The sixth sensation, fascination with him, is barbaric. And I'm saying that. And you entitled to like whomever you like. You entitled to promote whoever you want. You entitled to vote for whomever you want. That is your choice. But here's a family member saying, these are the things he said to me. And he's speaking about his own family, their dynamic. And that's Fred's journey. That's not Angela's journey. As I said, it's neither here or there for I. But the behavior I've seen from him is barbaric. It's inhumane. He does not respect people, period. So it wouldn't matter if you were black, white, blue, or green. That's been proven. Is he racist? He possibly is. But he don't like people. He doesn't have respect for his wife. He don't have respect for his children. He don't have respect for anybody. He doesn't even know how to talk, for one. If you listen to his conversations, everything is great, terrific, fantastic. That is a person who does not have formal education, and they don't have the fortitude to use proper English, and they don't know how to use the dictionary, because everything isn't great and everything isn't terrific and everything is not fantastic. It's just not. Those are the words you use when you don't have any other words to use. when you can't simply explain yourself. So you say, oh, that's great. That's fantastic. So most people are sitting around waiting, well, do you have anything else you'd like to say? No, that's it. Everything's great. Because everything is not great. Everything's not great. And I feel sorry for this man. Because that's what's sad about the world, is that people don't automatically turn on people because they say nasty things about other people or to them directly. They still care for them, because that's the whole point. We all can say things that maybe aren't so nice. And what I always say on this network, everything's about perception. But to talk about a disabled person and say, let them die, that's a whole different ball game. You can scratch everything you've ever seen come out of the mouth of this man. That's some fucked up shit to say about a human being. Because he doesn't have respect for people, because he doesn't respect himself. So that's where all this nastiness comes from. He doesn't like self. There's no way in the world you should even say that about a walking human being who hasn't done anything to anybody. They are developmentally delayed. Oh, let him die. Well, maybe somebody would have said that about you a couple weeks ago. Everybody was all up in getting their panties in a knot because he got shot. God forbid anybody said anything negative. Lord knows I paid the piper, have I not? Oh, they unsubscribed because all I said was, I don't care for him. But I didn't say, oh yeah, he should be dead. This, never said nothing. Just said I didn't care for him. And I would have said it if he had not been shot. Like I'm saying it now. I don't care for Donald Trump. I don't have to. I don't have to. And I don't want to hear anything about Biden and Kamala and Bill Clinton and what they did. We're not talking about them. What do they have to do with what Fred had to say? Nothing. Nothing. And that's what people do. They always want to do tit for tat. As soon as something bad comes out about one person of a political party, you want to go run over here and say, well, he did this, she did this. Well, we're not talking about them. One doesn't negate the other. Because in the end, you have to stand account for you. And when you stand before God, he's not going to worry about what Kamala did yesterday. He ain't going to worry about what Bill Clinton did yesterday. He ain't going to worry about what Mr. Biden did yesterday. Hello? Because God don't care what them folks did. He want to talk to you about your behavior while you were here on earth. How you treated people. Because that's the point. You have to stand account for you. What other people do, that's their business. That's their business. See, tit for tat shows you don't want any responsibility anyway. And anybody that aids that type of behavior, it shows you think it's okay for this person to walk out here and act and talk that way. When you think it's okay to bring up what somebody else did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, when that's not the subject. So what? People commit sins all the time. But when you put yourself out here in the public eye and you know you've got all these sins under your belt, you should know all that's going to come out one day. That's just the way it is. Movie star, sports, music, it's all the same. Politicians, it's all the same. You know you can't control yourself. You can't control your tongue. You got a nasty ass attitude. You don't really care about people. Hey, you don't care about people at all. Public service is not the business you should be in. And that's how I feel. That's how I feel. Public service is not for you. So that means if you work at Starbucks, Macy's, you answer the phone for AT&T, you're navigating somebody's personal business with their medical bills, you don't have a good attitude, disposition, you don't need that be in that field. So that also goes for the politician. You know you're not really a people person. You really don't care about civilians' lives. Then you shouldn't be in that business. And that's how I feel about any politician. I don't care who you are. I don't care what political party you affiliate yourself with. You don't care about people. You should not be a politician. You should not work for public service, period. I don't care what the job is. From Piggly Wiggly to the president. Now, he says he will vote for Miss Kamala Harris. Well, all right. And I have seen some videos lately in YouTube where a lot of Republicans say they don't care for Donald Trump. Oh, but it's okay for them to say it. Because that's the point. Just because you identify as a Democrat, an independent, Republican, does not mean you agree with your party's decisions, because that's the whole point. Everybody has his or her own mind. And it's sad that we live in a world where everybody groups people the same. I see it all the time. The nasty comments made under videos and articles. Somebody commits a crime. It's in an urban neighborhood. Oh, it's the Democrats' fault the city is like that. No, it's the people's fault the city is like that. Most of the country is conservative, but you have crimes in all jurisdictions. I live in a conservative state. So what's the problem with what's going on in my state? Because you can't stand account for everything that goes on. One person can't stand account for every little town, jurisdiction, parish in a damn state. That's unheard of. Oh, well, it's a Democrat. It's a Democratic mayor. That's why you got all that crime. You could easily have a Republican mayor and you still have people murdering each other, killing each other. What's your point? Because you don't have control over people. A Democratic Republican Party has no control over the mind of a human being. That's what's wrong with the world. Everything is grouping everybody the same, calling everybody the same. It's ignorant. It's an ignorant thought process. You can't tell people how to think and how to behave. And you're going to have crime because, one, you do have mentally ill people. You have people who have impulse control. You have people who are under the influence of alcohol and drugs. And then you have those who just don't give a fuck. So they'll do what they want to do. And it does not matter about who the president is. It doesn't matter who the mayor is. It doesn't matter who the senator or the governor is. If a person wants to go out here and commit a crime, he or she will. And we have people of all races, nationalities, identifications, political affiliations who break the law. Let me please say that. And they are nasty. They are vile because they're human. I don't have a problem with anybody unless they get ripe. And they're out here doing some felonious BS. So it doesn't matter if they're black, white, Jew, Arab, they're Democratic, they're Republican. I don't view people that way. I view you as a human first. Because in the end, that is what you are. And when you get judged, that's how you're going to stand. As a naked man, a naked woman. Not a Jew, not an Arab, not a black, not a Republican, not a Democrat. You're going to be just a human on the slab trying to explain what you did down here on earth, if it was good or bad. That's how I view humans. But as I have said before in my commentary, I don't argue about Donald Trump. I don't argue about any politician. Because I talk to all kinds of people who sway either way. And obviously a lot of people who follow this network were Republicans. They rooted for Trump. They decided they no longer wanted to be a part of this network. I have no problem with that. I'm not going to pretend to be something that I'm not, and I'm not going to hide behind a subject matter for a view and a like. I do not care for Donald Trump. I have never cared for him. He was okay when he was on TV, but that's the whole point. I didn't know him. He was just somebody on a TV show saying, "You're fired." But when he decided to run for public office, I decided I did not like him as a human being. And I still don't care for him as a human being. And what is so disgusting is this information from Mr. Fred, his nephew, to hear that he has wished death on his own child and disabled individuals when he was just shot a couple weeks ago. You see, karma is a motherfucker. And whether you want to say it's the devil's work, it's God's work, whatsoever, of what happened to Mr. Trump, that's for the universe to decide, not I. But the point is, you have said vile things about disabled people and your own nephew to say, let him die. That's what you said to his father. And then fast forward weeks later, years later, somebody puts an attempt on your life. Did you think about Fred's child while down there on the ground Because you should have, Mr. Trump. You should have thought long and hard. Lord have mercy, what have I done so terrible for somebody to want me to be unalived? And as we've seen with the information coming out about that young man, I think he was naturally just a wayward person in the brain, mad at the world for whatever reason, or wanted to make a name for himself. He had searched, many different people. So I don't think it mattered to him who he took out. But still, nonetheless, on that fateful day, he chose Mr. Trump. And by the grace of God, he was spared. Because God didn't have to spare his life, but he did. And so that's what he needs to always remember. At almost 80 years of age, instead of spewing rhetoric and negativity into the universe, why don't you talk about something positive? Why don't you speak positive at some point in your life? And to be this old and be so ignorant, that means you've been this way. Did you hear Fred say, well, it's like he changed? No, he never changed. Fred, your uncle never changed. This is who he has always been, an old fool. Because you don't wake up at 76, 77, 78 and act like this. You've been this way. And to me, it's a pathetic way to live. It's one thing to be young and dumb, but to be near 80 and dumb, it's atrocious. I'd be ashamed to let anybody know I was walking around acting this way and talking this way at almost 80 years of age. God has blessed you to live a long time. You don't even have to be alive. That's what Mr. Trump needs to understand. God favored you when he brought you here. He favored you to be prosperous, even when you were undeserving. You're defrauding people with your school and sneaking around and sleeping with different women and all type of foolishness. Never paying your due bill legally by the IRS. You were favored. And then he spared your life weeks ago, and he didn't have to. Because he's been trying to tell you something, you won't listen. So you're entitled to believe what you want about what Mr. Fred has to say about his uncle. He still cares about him. He still won't mind going to the inauguration. He says if he wins, naturally Donald Trump is not going to invite him anywhere. He probably is going to have some choice words about his nephew. And I won't be surprised if he starts coming out saying stuff. And that will be his downfall to say anything about Fred at this point. Because what people are going to say is, yeah, but what about what you said about his child? He has a disabled child, which is your relative. Your relative. You're the uncle of that boy child. And you wish death on him. You can't take that back. You can't take that back. So you see, the same death he wished on his nephew, he almost had the same fate a few weeks ago. That's my commentary. Thank you for joining me. God bless you. Happy hump day to everybody. Once again, this is a 2-part live pertaining to R. Kelly. His lawyers are fighting the sex abuse charges in Chicago. The Supreme Court upheld the ruling for the sex abuse charges. The district attorney dropped those charges last January 2023 because he already had a 30-year sentence from New York. But the Supreme Court upheld those convictions, and now he and his attorneys, they are seeking to get them overturned by the Supreme Court. There is allegedly a review. We will see what happens. I'll bring you an update. And Mr. Fred Trump, the nephew of Donald Trump, has written a book, and he's decided to give a few synopsis of things that have happened in his life and his relationship with his uncle and the cruelty he felt exacted to him from his uncle, Donald Trump. Feel free to check out the said information, the sources. And if you'd like to buy Mr. Fred's book, feel free to buy the book. And now the Trump Association administration is saying these are all lies. But that's the whole point. Everything's about perception. You either believe it or you don't. Frankly, I don't care. Because at this point, if what I have seen in my right mind, it would not shock me that he said those things to Fred at all. Just from what I've seen him say on television and Twitter, it would not shock me. To me, he's just a callous, cold, son of a bitch. He doesn't care about anybody because he doesn't care about himself. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $Big Angie 129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are always welcome during live stream. Thank you for your time. God bless all of you. You have been listening to the Fall Excel. You're welcome, sweetheart. Thank you.